guys, welcome back. GM Light here. Today we're going to be talking about the 2013 Evil Dead remake. So this marks the last of the Evil Dead movies before the new one, Evil Dead Rise. And this is one of those remakes that perfectly elevate, escalate, bring the original concept to the modern times and make the most out of it. Whereas the worst of these remakes of the 2000s, the early 2010s, wanted to just go back, copy the original, take what worked about it, and then just put a CGI slathering of painting over the original, pretty much just copy it and call it a remake, call it a day. This one takes a completely different approach, actually takes advantage of the fact that we have modern effects and we could use better modern practical effects with the amount of money and time that they had. It just fully takes advantage of that. Could have easily been lazy, it could have easily just brought in a new actor to play Ash, have CGI blood and gore, but it doesn't do that. It doesn't even copy the original premise entirely. They find a completely different reason to bring these characters to this cabin, and they find an organic way to make the characters not believe the main character when she starts seeing messed up things, demands that they have to go, and it all works. So for the plot of the 2013 Evil Dead, like the original, 5 friends head to a remote cabin where the discovery of a book of the dead leads them to unwittingly summon up demons living in the nearby woods. But what makes it different is that they're bringing their friend there to dry out after having a nearly fatal overdose. So from the get-go, that premise sets it up for them to make tough decisions, for them to be less willing to believe her, thinking that she's just going through withdrawal because she's a drug addict that will say anything to get out of that situation. When she starts to see things, when she starts to feel things, when she starts to get haunted, they're a lot less likely to believe her because they think she's having some sort of psychotic break due to that withdrawal. And it's so frustrating to watch. It creates another heart-wrenching element to the movie. Instead of it just being 5 teenagers going to spend the weekend and shit goes down, she's trapped there and nobody believes her until it's too late. And speaking of the heart-wrenching stuff, that's something that this movie also gets very right. They have all of the right emotions and the perfect amount of impact and punch. When loved ones die, loved ones turn, and they have to make the tough decisions, you feel all of it. They know every right heartstring to pull to make you feel bad for these characters, and they do not flinch. They do not hold back. They make it as hard, brutal, and nasty as possible. Getting onto the gore, thankfully they went as much practical as they could have. The huge risk, especially in 2013, that would be that their impulse would have been to go full CGI, all the CGI blood, everything, but it all looks pretty real, pretty practical. I think that they did as much as they could, and everything that I imagine would have been CGI was blended pretty perfectly to the practical effects. There's definitely a lot of care for that original in this, and it manages to be its own thing and take its own direction without either copying the original or spitting on it. The risk with some of these movies with rebootquels more often than not, but they either feel like they have to copy the original in order to pay respect to it, or conversely, they try to take a direction that's way too different and is kind of insulting to the fans. But this manages to do the balance of paying massive respect to the franchise and the fans and Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell, while also being completely its own thing with its own characters and a very original idea, taking a different approach to this material. I'm also glad that although it does have its level of goofiness, it does take the material seriously. This is definitely one of the darker iterations of this franchise. And although it has its cheesiness, it has its moments, it never overshadows the movie. It's never too much. They never go overboard or let it take the front and center. What worked with this franchise in the 80s, I don't think would have worked as well for it in the modern day, in the 2010s. So I think they made the right choice by pulling the reins back, and instead of going full-on Evil Dead 2, going more close to the first movie's tone and playing it straight. Not to say that they didn't have great homages to the second movie, they didn't have a lot of fun with this premise, and that those elements of fun cheesiness from the second movie weren't in there, but they were more baked into the cake rather than an overwhelming factor in the movie. What I'd say as far as negatives, this one's kind of tough because it was intentional, but it's a little bit difficult sometimes to watch drug addict characters. They can be very frustrating. They have these moments where they lash out at people like they do in real life, and it's just hard to watch sometimes. The behavior is very frustrating, and even if it's in a movie, even if it's not real, it's still just hard to watch, and it sometimes can suck the fun out of a movie that's otherwise a whole lot of fun. They also sidelined the main character for a while in the movie, and that did keep me guessing. It kept me from predicting or understanding what was going on. I liked the misdirection that they they provided there, but sometimes it shortchanges the ending victory when she wasn't really part of this entire movie as a survivor. So that's just a small thing that cuts against it, but nothing that kills the movie. Overall, I really enjoy this remake. I definitely would put it as one of the better remakes, especially of this era, right up there with the Texas Chainsaw or the Friday the 13th remake. Overall, very solid movie. What I would have thought would have been a great return to the franchise. I'm surprised that they never really made any direct follow-ups to this, but who knows? I'm sure that there's a way that they could incorporate this movie into the larger franchise as a whole. There's nothing that I would say goes against any of the previous continuity or any of the continuity that'll probably happen with Evil Dead Rise. So maybe we could get this main character back at one point. Maybe we get a convergence of these different eras of the franchise together for another Evil Dead sequel, kind of like the way that they did with the Chucky TV series in season 2. But overall, Evil Dead 2013, what do you guys think? Love to hear what you think in the comments section. Let me know. I'm GM Light. Have a good one.